talking? What? Hear people talking? What? They in the path? What? Go to the wrath of knowledge. What up, sub? What? What up, leader? What? What up, trailblazer? What? What up, Dr. Akil?
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Dr. Brownsville, and we are here today with the boss, our superintendent, Dr. Darrisaw-Akil. Let's give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Woo! All right, so Dr. Akil, I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much. This is my first time being invited to be on a podcast inside our school, so this is a big deal.
Good. So I'm really excited because we do have a lot of questions to ask you, and I have some questions that's not on the sheet that I'm going to ask you that you have to answer. So let's start off from the beginning. What made you get into education? What was your inspiration?
So my inspiration was being a student in Brooklyn. I'm also from Brooklyn. I think you're from Brooklyn.
From Brownsville.
Bedford-Stuyvesant. The livest one. Anyway, I'm from Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, and I just saw that there was so much inequity in our schools, that some students got really great equipment and great fields and beautiful schools to learn in and wonderful school environments, and other students like myself, got what was left over. And I always just thought that there was a lot of inequity in that. And I just couldn't shake it. And I just wanted to be a part of the solution. And it was more than just the environment. It was also the way in which some students were being taught. So I've been to schools all over, really at this point, the world. But at that point, I hadn't. But I did know that some students were being taught to be leaders and other students were being taught to be led. And I think that sets them up for like a lifetime of servitude, and in some ways we're deeming some children of poverty. And so once I realized that, and I was pretty young, I was about 12 or 13 years old where I was stuck with that, I knew I wanted to be a part of the solution.
So you felt those things at 12, 13 years old.
So it sounds a little funny, but I tell the story. So I was in a gifted class.
Okay.
So in my school district when I grew up, the only way that maybe you got an opportunity to have some really wonderful learning experiences like photography and going on field trips is if you were in a gifted class. And so I was hyper aware that everybody's not in a gifted class. So if I'm getting these opportunities, why aren't the children who live next to me getting these opportunities just because they're not in a gifted class? And so I was just always conscious that good things should be for all children, regardless of what classification you're in.
No. Okay. So you started teaching in Boys and Girls High School?
Boys and Girls High School, yes, in Bedford-Stuyvesant.
So talk me through that. How was that experience being a teacher in Boys and Girls High School in Bedford-Stuyvesant? Where you're from?
Where I'm from. So one, my brother had graduated just the year before. And so there was a little bit of overlap with some of the girls that he had dated and people in my class.
Oh, snap.
But that's a little
Spicy.
spicy. But it really filled me with a lot of pride because when I went to high school, we didn't see boys and girls as an option because there was so much crime and violence, and there just wasn't a really great reputation. But then there was this principal, Frank Mickens, who came and really changed everything about the school, starting from the environment. And that also is a lesson that stays with me, that if you don't have a safe school culture, kids can't learn, and good teachers don't stay.
Yeah.
If they have to run to their car, they're not staying. So when he created the culture and the conditions for learning, the school turned around, and I just had so much pride to be a teacher in the neighborhood that I grew up in. So, yeah.
So you started as a teacher, and some people kind of stay there. They say, all right, I'm happy with what I do. And I think teaching is the most powerful, most amazing profession there is. You chose to go into leadership. What inspired you to go into leadership from being a teacher?
So I just think I always had a lot of curiosity. And one time there was someone who came to our departmental meeting who was a staff developer. And so I was like, what does she do? She teaches other teachers like how to be good and great. And I said, I want to do that. And I think every time I turned around, I was like, there's something else to do in education. I want to do that. But also, I think I wanted to be a part of the solution, shaping policies. A lot of decisions are made about our schools, about our children, about even things like what do they read. And I was like, I felt like it was like the Wizard of Oz who makes these decisions.
Who's behind the wall?
They're behind the wall. We don't know who they are. You just get a memo saying this is what you have to do. And I felt like as a child who grew up in New York City, who went to public schools, that I had the right to help be a part of making those decisions. And so that's how I got into policy and leadership. And eventually I became a principal in Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Let's talk about that. That's something that you always mention to me. You're very proud about the work that you've done in Bushwick. What was so special about that time for you in Bushwick? Because I was in Bushwick for 15 years, and I already know what you're going to say, but how was that experience for you in Bushwick?
So, again, I think that when I think about what Mr. Mickens did, and of course the other people that are with him, really great leaders, and there were also teachers that believed, right? Because not one person can change anything by themselves. You need a team of folks who see the vision and say, we're going to work towards making this happen. So, shout out to everybody who was part of turning Boys and Girls High School to the jewel of Brooklyn. So I think in Bushwick, it was the same type of opportunity. There were low graduation rates, surrounded by a lot of crime, actually filth in the streets. But really, it was a school community where people had given up hope that the children could graduate, that the children could go to college. And there were a lot of challenges there. There were a lot of grandparents raising their children. There were a lot of children who were first in their family to graduate from high school. So there was no place to go but up to a certain degree. And it really felt like I believe they deserve the best. And I know it sounds very egotistical to say, but I thought I was a good leader, or I had the potential to be a good leader. And I was like, maybe I can go someplace else. But I was like, our children in this community need great teachers. They need people who really believe in them, see their potential, and they need great leaders. So instead of trying to go someplace where things are already great, I was like, why don't we go someplace where there's a lot of challenges? And yes, the work is going to be hard, but then when we change things, the rewards are so great. And we changed lives, and generations. One of the things we did in Bushwick was at that first graduation class, right? People didn't think the kids going to graduate. The high school that we were seated in, Bushwick High School, at that time had a graduation rate that was in the 30s, low 30s. Wow. And so people didn't think that high school graduation was necessarily attainable. And one of the things we did in our first graduation class was we did a parade where we reclaimed the block. Nice. And that's biblical, right? Like we walked all around the whole
7
four
times?
Corners. We did it once. But the kids had on their graduation robes and they had their cars, and we led a parade, and I believe that we reclaimed that school for that community and said, your kids don't have to go someplace else to get a good education. You should be able to go to the school right next door and get a great education. And so that's something I'm proud about. And
when is the book coming out? When is the movie coming out?
Well,
Who's
we'll
playing
see.
you?
We'll see. But I think Taraji got a little sass. So I think that's me.
Okay. So after you became a principal, you took on different roles, central administration, and then you became the superintendent of Uniondale. And we've seen a tremendous turnaround in terms of this community. So I think everybody here is very grateful for the work that you've done. And there's still work to be done. Something that I want to ask you personally, and this is off the script.
Yes.
No matter what we speak about, you always get back to student performance, how's the schools doing? Like, I've seen you have conversations about all these other things, and something happens where you go, yeah, but in terms of the graduation and attendance, what is that? Like, you have this ability to not get distracted. Like, where does that come from? Off script, guys, so give us time to process it.
Yeah. So I think that I'm tired of performance art, right? I'm tired of speeches that don't have any impact. I'm tired of, people talking about things like self-esteem and, even some of the pieces around culture. I think if you really want to change lives, it's making sure that the children that we serve have the same opportunities as our children, right? We're college educated, some of us live in private homes. Some of us come from a lineage of people who are college educated. So to me, don't play with it. That's where it comes from. Yes, all the symbolic things, are very important. We want children to not just be prepped for tests. We want them to have whole, full lives. But I think we do them a disservice if we focus on all these other things and then we don't take care of the basics, which is, can they, compete? Can they perform on a job interview? Do they have the basics around literacy and numeracy? So they have choices. So something that's very big for me is that children have the choices to do whatever it is they want. If they decide that they want to go into arts, they can. They want to start their own businesses, they can. They want to go to a 4-year college, they can. But if they don't have the basics, then we have limited their choices, so they can only choose 1 or 2 routes. Yeah. And what I do know about the future of work is that our young people are going to have 2 and 3 and maybe 4 careers. They're going to have to pivot from one thing to the other as industry has changed. So if they don't have the basics, they won't have the ability to pivot. No. And so that's why I'm like, in all that we do, you make sure that these kids can read, they can write, they can present an argument, they can debate, they can, look at trends and look at data and analyze it, because that's what the world is going to have for them, regardless of if you want to be an artist, you want to follow, what are the music trends that are out that are popular, like whatever, whatever field you want to go into, you need some of those skills. So that's why I'm really, really big on that.
Okay. Well, I will say that your work has inspired me a lot. I've taken it up a notch, and it's not necessarily because you're hard on me, but I do feel very much inspired by your example, and I wanted to say that to you. Let's go through your day, because sometimes you seem superhuman. Put in 10-hour days. What are your morning rituals like? What are your non-negotiables that you do before you start your work as a district leader?
So I have to say, I don't have a very magical or wonderful morning routine. This is bad. The first thing I do is check both phones.
Okay.
I know it's really bad, and it's not, I know. The reason being is because there have been days where my phones were not charged, and then when I get them fully charged, I see 50 messages talking about something like, oh, there's a fire, or there's a gas smell, we had to evacuate. So when I roll over, and thank God for giving me another day, I'm like, what is going on? Okay. Are there any call outs, anything crazy? And then once I check that, then I'm able to kind of move into the rest. But I have to make sure there's nothing crazy. And I also, there's a local news station, it's News 12, Long Island.
Shout out to News 12.
Shout out to News 12. But they are hyper-local. So if something is happening in a neighboring school district or neighboring community, I like to know what's going on, because I'm trying to see if it's going to have an impact on us. So that's that. And then I do the girly things. I also try to either exercise, lift weights, so I do have weights in my bedroom. I try to do a little something just to keep the blood flowing, try to stay toned, and then I get ready to come on over.
Okay. Now, in terms of your productivity, like, what's one app or structure or system that you swear by that just helps you organize your days and keeps you productive?
So I can't say that it's an app, but I will tell you that I keep my calendar. I believe in like live.
Amen.
And
you have to.
You have to. If
yeah.
it's not on the calendar, if somebody sees you in the hall and says, hey, what about this? If it's not on the calendar, the likelihood is that I might miss it. So I really try to stick with the calendar, make sure every major event, anything that I have an intention of doing is on that calendar. So that's the new, I don't know, digital calendar that is. I try to do that.
So you are obviously a Black woman in a position of leadership.
What gave it away? Was it the skin?
Listen.
Again?
So the question that I have for you is, and there's very few Black women that are superintendents, what words of inspiration or aspiration would you give to a young Black girl that's thinking about it? Because in this space, we know that the numbers are the numbers about who's in these positions and how long they last, and the disposition or the stereotypes that's cast on Black women. What words of inspiration would you give to some of our young Black girls that are watching?
One is rejection is a fact of life. And it just, especially if you're going for something big, if you're going for something that no one has done before or few people have done, get used to rejection. And no one loves rejection. No one wants to, get that sting, right? However, learn how to embrace it and make room for it and not let that be the thing that stops you, right? If I had stopped moving just because I got one rejection for things that I've applied for, I even developed a practice, and I saw one of my mentees do this. Sometimes I've submitted for articles, or even I've submitted for proposals to speak at, different conferences. And sometimes I get rejected. I keep them in a folder. And
you keep a list.
No, it's not that kind of list, though. It's not that I'm gonna get you like how you like me now list. It's not that list. It's the list that says to me, you had the courage to go for it. So when I look back at it, at the moment it stings, but later on I'm like, look at you. You applied to this particular, I'm not gonna name any names because I'm not gonna give you credit if you didn't let me in your club, but whatever.
Shots.
But it reminds me that despite a rejection, I'm still here. I'm still going. Other great things have happened for me. So that's the one piece I would say. Don't let rejection stop you. Don't let other people's perceptions, because some people put us in a box because of where we come from, how we speak, whatever it is. And I don't let other people define me. I'm defining me. So I'm not letting other people stop me because of what they think and where they think I should be. So I'm doing me.
So this is the thing. So now I got to break away a little bit from, because I feel like the question that I think I have, or people have sometimes, is like, did you always have that confidence? Or were you just like from the womb, you just came out with because a lot of what you're talking about is about self-esteem and confidence and being okay with rejection. And a lot of our young girls that are watching, teenagers or just people in general, they're very sensitive about these things. So to hear you say it with such, it's like, all right, you was just always that way, or did something happen that made you go, okay, now I feel great about me and I'm confident? Something had to happen.
So no, as a matter of fact, I always struggled with confidence and self-esteem, and high school was the absolute worst.
Oh gosh.
High school was the worst because it was going into the lunch, and I went to all girls school.
Oh.
And going into the lunchroom, and you felt like you were always being measured up, and I never measured up well. Never. In my mind, I never measured up well. And so going into the lunchroom was like, what table do I sit at? Will anyone smile at me? Like it was tough, right? And I think also I was teased a lot. I was teased a lot in elementary school. I was teased in high school. I could never quite get my look together. My hair was always bushy. My skin was a little pimply. Like all the things that I thought like defined me, right? So self-esteem was a really big issue for me. And I think that as I started to move towards the end of my high school career, I just decided I'm not going to let anyone mistreat me, even if I have to be alone. So I was taking the train from Brooklyn to Manhattan, and I started to just be alone. And I think in those alone moments, I learned that I'm going to be
Strong.
okay.
Yeah.
You know, I don't need 25 friends. If I have one good one, I'm good. And I think, you know, eventually you do the work on yourself and, you know, surround yourself with one or two people that are always speaking life to you and, you know, always affirming you. And I'm very particular about who I surround myself with in my personal
yes.
time.
Oh, yes.
And I would say don't surround yourself with people who don't really like you. If they don't like you, and sometimes people do things, you're like, oh, they don't really like me, then leave them alone. I don't care what club they're in. I don't care what they can invite you to. If they do not show that they like you and they're thinking good things for you, leave them alone. And so I've done that from an early age. And I just, if I have to be alone, I'm okay. I'm going to be my own best friend. But now I do have a couple of friends, but you have to be okay with being alone.
Good. Last couple of questions. In terms of Uniondale, there's a lot of folks that are interested in coming to Uniondale. There's a lot of people who want to raise up in the ranks and become leaders in Uniondale. One of the questions they have is like, how do you spot untapped talent, or how do you spot potential in leaders or teachers? What are your look fors? Because there's a lot of people that's watching like, all right, this is a district I might be interested in working in. What do you look for?
So I think that skills can be taught, will cannot be, right? So if you
Clock the T, that's what she clocked it. I don't know what it means, but the students.
I don't know what that means, but
something cool.
Something
Right.
cool. I just, you know, so I think that, yes, you have to have a certain basic level of skill, but I look at like your behavior, your leadership behaviors. How do you show up? You know, do you show up like you're really interested? Are you a continuous learner? How do you show up when you get feedback that might feel critical or might feel like, you know, you did the best you could and now you're getting some feedback? How do you show up around that? And if you show up in a way that I call it the learning stance, like, yeah, tell me more about what you're seeing. If you show up in a place where I'm seeing, and not just for me, because I'm very rarely looking at the people who are interacting with me. I'm looking at how you're interacting with others. Are you a good colleague? Are you trying to support an initiative? So it's not about how you interact with me. It's about how you show up, you know, in your workplace with other leaders as well as with your colleagues. You know, again, those leadership behaviors, those attitudes, because that's something I really can't necessarily teach you. Skills, we could always do, development or growth and learning, but, you know, who you are, your character, and that alignment is the things that you say, the same as the things that you do. If you say you love our kids.
Let your yes be yes. And your
Exactly.
no,
Your no be no. If you say you love our kids, then how will I know? What's the evidence that you love our kids?
And your pet peeve about telling the truth. You know that's a real big pet peeve for you. If you don't tell the truth, it's not going to work out too well. Couple of last questions before we close out. These are quick hitters, and you got to make a decision. Jay-Z or Nas?
Nas, the ether.
Wow. She's the truth. She gets it. She understands.
For sure.
Brooklyn Nets or the New York Knicks?
Brooklyn Nets.
Oh, no. Dr.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
The Nets.
How are they looking right now? It's not looking
it's
good.
about your character. You don't just abandon somebody when they're struggling. You stick in it.
Okay. A song that gets you hype every single time you hear it. It just brings you joy, happiness. Every time you hear it, you just feel like, that's my song.
Okay. So we actually did this song at our wedding.
Okay.
Oh my God. You got what I need, but you say he's just a friend.
Biz Marquee.
But you say he's just a friend.
Oh, baby.
You.
All right, you guys don't know the song. Anyway, Dr. Akil, let's give her a round of applause. Maverick, leader, inspiration. We thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you guys.
All right.